Hello and welcome to Washington Unplugged. I'm John Dickerson. I'm here at Union Station where earlier today I talked to former Majority Leader Bob Dole and former Majority Leader Tom Daschle, a Republican and a Democrat who've joined together to push a bipartisan health care reform package. Okay. Senator Daschle, I want to start with you. You are friends with the president. Let's say you went in, met with him, and said, Mr. President, I know you're looking at a lot of plans, but here's what makes our plan better.
Well, I don't know that this is necessarily a better plan. What it is, it's a way to find common ground. Our whole purpose was to see how Republicans and Democrats might take on some of the complex issues involving health reform and see if there's a middle, see if there's a way to resolve the differences both ideologically and politically that exist. So if there's any value to what we've done, it's that we've offered some solutions that may offer ways with which to compromise on some of the tough issues that we face in health reform right now.
I know one of the things you want in this package is for everybody to look at it as a whole piece. But when you're talking about the middle ground, where did you find middle ground, Senator Dole? What's the one issue where you said, well, you know, I might not have supported this, but in the interest of getting to the middle, I'll support this particular issue?
I think on the mandate, that was not an easy thing for me to, let's say, give on. But when we started, we decided we weren't going to let two or three things kill our effort. And this is not a legislative package. This does not include everything that should be in a health care bill. These are recommendations by, well, three and Senator Mitchell for a long time, four of us. We don't have any votes, we don't have any power, but we've had the experience, and we're offering these recommendations. And I have mentioned to the president that, and of course Tom has talked to him about it, that we're working on this package, and he indicated we needed to get together and talk about it. But he knows it's not a bill. He knows it's some recommendations that we think you could build a bill around it.
Right. Senator Daschle, what did you give on? If Senator Dole gave on mandates, what was for you? What was an issue that you probably wouldn't have supported if it were just by itself?
Well, of course, one of the big issues for a lot of Democrats is a public plan, and we compromised on that substantially. We don't have a federal public plan in this program. What we do have are states that have a right to set one up if they want, with technical and financial assistance from the government, with a federal fallback in 5 years. But that was a fairly significant concession. At the same time, when you look at the whole package, as Senator Dole just noted, you've got to look at it in its entirety. And as I look at it in that fashion, I'm very proud of the work we were able to do.
Senator Dole, when you were chairman of the Finance Committee right now is looking at a bill, legislation we're going to see maybe any day now. What would you have said if somebody came along and said, okay, here's a package, you should consider this. I know you've been working for months, but you should consider this. Wouldn't you have said, hey, I've got votes, I've got constituents, I've got to worry about being reelected?
Listen, I had a bill in 1977, and some of the things in that bill are in the recommendations. It was Senator Danforth, Senator Domenici, and myself. And Tom wasn't there yet, but you know, so it hadn't this last year. Healthcare sprung up as an issue. It's been out there for 30 or 40 years, and nobody's ever gotten enough courage to tackle it. Mm-hmm. And so I commend this Congress. I just hope they can find enough on each side to make it bipartisan, not a party line piece of legislation.
Would you have been receptive, though, and do you think they'll be receptive to your recommendations, the senators working on legislation?
I think some. We don't expect perfection. We didn't, we didn't say, well, these former leaders did this, it must be okay. We know people will offer suggestions, amendments, or just flat out reject it. But I think overall, if you look at all of it, you're going to find a lot of merit. And our goal is to help the vulnerable Americans who do not now have health care. And I said Americans.
Yeah.
And so I assume we will be asked to go up to a few committees. That's not lobbying, is it?
Oh, well, that's up to you to figure out. As you strive for the middle in bipartisanship here, one of the ways in which bipartisanship breaks down is the language that's used. You know, there are a lot of things you suggest in this set of recommendations that Republicans would say, oh, that's government control. Comparative effectiveness, for example, is something. Are there phrases or expressions that either one of you, I'll start with you, Senator Dole, that you'd like to see out of the conversation in order to get it to the middle?
That's why we didn't try to draft anything. Say this is the legislative language which makes this possible. I don't think we could have gotten that done. We didn't have the time. But you're right. The language sometimes will derail a good piece of legislation. But if you've got men and women in Congress, as I believe we have, who understand the seriousness of this issue to millions of Americans, I think they can certainly work out some money.
Senator Daschle, what would you like to see out of the conversation in terms of trying to build bipartisanship and a middle? What sort of rhetoric that gets thrown around already would you like to see out of this?
Well, you know, there are a lot of words that drive the emotion in this debate: rationing, socialized, single payer, all of those things. And you know, it's what we've decided to do is to try to recognize that there's a lot of good in our system, and we want to protect that. We want to, you know, what the president likes to say is, if you like what you've got, you ought to be able to keep it. Well, that's a premise, I think, upon which there could be broad agreement. And that's our goal here, is if you like what you've got, you ought to be able to keep it. But that doesn't mean we can't improve on the whole system. And that's what we're offering today, is ways with which to make this system better.
Is it realistic to sell either this group of reforms or the president's plan by telling people, if you like what you've got, nothing's going to change, but we're going to change 1/5 of the economy and nothing's going to change? I mean, help people understand what to expect when we're talking about this kind of a massive change, whether it's your suggestions or something similar to it.
Well, I think everybody seems to understand why it's important for us to change the paradigm from illness to wellness. I mean, I think most people like their system, who do like it, in part because they understand it. And we want to continue to make it as understandable for them as possible by building in more transparency, by using comparative effectiveness where it works, the kinds of things that will improve the quality overall. What people tell us is that it costs too much, and that we've got to find ways with which to make sure that they don't get priced out of the market if we do nothing at all. So those are the kinds of changes we think there's strong support among the American people for.
And unless people aren't going to sit around and read this bill after dinner, I'm not sure all the members of Congress will read it. It's not, oh, we don't have a bill, but even the recommendation. But the best way to demonstrate that we're serious about it is to do something, and if they see changes in what is available to them, they'll know we had a, you know, it was a success, and that's what we want.
Let me ask you one final question to both of you. Almost 50 years of Senate leadership between the two of you. As a nose-counting exercise, how many votes do you need in the Senate for a comprehensive health care package to make it something that is truly bipartisan and that you know is a real bill that's not just a partisan act? How many votes, Senator Dole?
Well, I'd like to have 20 Republicans. You know, 3 doesn't count, or 2.
Okay.
Because we lost 1. And but I think 20. You know, if we get 20.
I was going to put it. I was going to give you the same answer in a different way. I was going to say, if we get 70 votes, which would be 20 Republicans and 50 Democrats, I think that you know, we're pretty close to being where we are, and I think that's what it has to be. It's something, you know, something where you've got a substantial number, double-digit number of Republicans and Democrats.
Okay. Senator Daschle, thank you very much. Senator Dole, thanks so much for visiting with us.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
And a heartwarming moment yesterday when James Brady stopped by the White House press room. James Brady was the press secretary for President Ronald Reagan, who was injured in the assassination attempt of President Reagan. Let's take a look.
Jim, how you feeling?
I'm feeling fine.
Do you miss us, Jim?
Yes. I miss some of you.
Thanks for watching Washington Unplugged. I'm John Dickerson. You can join us every day at 12:30 right here at CBSNews.com.